evening. Today is Monday, October 12, 2020. Welcome to this evening's regular meeting of the Oregon City Council. Let's begin tonight's meeting by standing for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. President, will you please take a roll call, council for attendance?
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Hornet?
Here.
Mrs. Powell? Here. Mr. Reeves? Mr. Seaman?
Here.
Mr. Walczak?
Here.
Mr. Dale?
Here. Thank you. Please note that 6 members of the council are present. Mr. Reeves contacted me last evening. He has a commitment for work and could not attend this evening. So I take motion to excuse Mr. Reeves from this meeting.
So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Marnier. Second by Ms. Powell. Council, any objections? Hearing no objection, Mr. Reeves is excused from this evening's meeting. Also joining us this evening are from the council, Tina Evans, Mayor Michael Safari, City Administrator Mr. Michael Beasley, Law Director Mr. McCoy, our Public Service Director Mr. Paul Roman, and the Finance Director Mr. Michael Conlon. Council, we have nobody signed in this evening to speak before council, so our first order of business will be the approval of the meeting minutes from the September 28th, 2020 regular meeting of council.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Seaman?
Yeah, I move to approve the minutes of the regular September 2020 council meeting as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Second by Mr. Zaya. Council, any objections? Hearing no objections, the meeting minutes from the September 28th, 2020 regular meeting are approved as submitted. Council, we did not have a home meeting last week. Therefore, we need to add items 103, 104, and 105 of 2020 to this evening's agenda. Can I get a motion for that?
Mr. President,
Seaman?
I'd like to move to add item 103 to 105 to this evening's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Second by Mr. Zale. Council, any objections? Hearing no objections, items 103, 104, and 105 are added to this evening's agenda. And we will start with item number 103 of 2020. This item is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Superior, City Administrator Michael Beasley, and Law Director Melissa Pecora. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, this is an agreement that uses our electrical provider to get into solar generation process. And users here to tell us how that all works out and what we could possibly reap out of this.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. President, members, Melissa and I have a few words on this. It's important that this ordinance tonight authorizes a letter of intent. It doesn't require us to do anything as a city or to move forward on anything. What it does is, for a couple of years now, as you know, the Northwest Ohio Aggregation Coalition, which includes the City of Oregon, City of Perrysburg, Maumee, Sylvania, the townships, this county, other communities in the area, we buy energy for folks on the opt-out plan. And we've been the most successful. I say we, like the whole city's done it. Most of the work's done by the folks at Palmer Energy. They've done a great job over the years. Have allowed our residents to save considerable dollars over the years on both gas and electricity. This is an approach that would allow the aggregation to, looking long-term, get a relatively small portion of its electricity from perhaps a 100 megawatt solar array at some point in the future. This ordinance tonight is really just a letter of intent that says if it comes forward and if the math works, the City of Oregon might, but there was an ask, so each of the communities is going through this effort in passing this tonight, and the board had voted to say yes, they move forward with this, and so each of the communities is reviewing it. It's something we would move ahead with. But there's some appropriate due diligence that will have to go in to determine whether or not that math works and whether that makes sense for us. Looking along, some of the new technology is interesting. There's potentially some long-term saving opportunities with it. So that's what they'll look at, and they'll go through that process. But this essentially authorizes a letter, doesn't require any action from Oregon long-term, will require us to appropriately consider it if it can hit some of the targeted numbers that come in.
and come before council again to see where we're going.
Thank you, Mr. McCord. Council, is there any questions from the administration on item number 103? Mr. President. Mr. Zan?
When I looked at this, I understand that our role in this at the moment is very limited. But when you talk about putting in a solar array, does that involve the city of Oregon necessarily?
At some point, it will be a choice of whether or not we want to, as a community, get a portion of the power for the aggregation coalition from that array. That will be the choice for the city of Oregon at some point.
Because it doesn't necessarily mean, I guess my question was, it doesn't necessarily mean the solar array will be within the city of Oregon.
But
Okay, thank you.
it could, and it really will be based on the price of land and, all those pieces, the interconnectivity, there's a range of issues involved in that.
Thank you, Mr. Zan. Mr. President. Mr. Harney?
Question for you. One is probably more to Mr. Porter, the other is just, I guess, in the overall agreement. So, as a non-binding letter of intent, right down underneath paragraph B, it says it's non-binding except for the following 7 provisions, or 7 paragraphs within that. Looking through it, I don't see anything too, anything that makes me too nervous about what's in any of those areas, but isn't it unusual to have a non-binding letter of intent with the binding portions of the clause? That seems to be a rather goofy language use.
Mr. President, just a note, I totally agree, it is fairly typical language in these letters. It ultimately says, look, we're going to agree to explore these things together and to do due diligence, and that's our obligation. It is one of the mechanisms that the parties use to justify a due diligence phase where they're going to spend some time and focus. So the folks that want to ultimately market this, unless we said, hey, we're interested and we'll respond and share information back and forth, we're not going to go through all that work. And that's what that is. So in some ways, and part of it's almost a legal fiction, but at the end of the day, we're not obligated to move forward.
Right, and looking at it, it doesn't look like, the paragraphs that are cited there. I mean, it's confidentiality.
Right, that's right.
So, I didn't see anything in there, just, someone who's constructed enough letters of intent. It seemed unusual that there's some exclusions within a non-binding letter of intent.
Bottom line, the things that are binding is they can't share our information, we can't share their information. That's the real
That's
ultimate.
about what I see. So my other question with this is, so entering into the letter of intent, what is the scope of their research or their development of a proposal or project for Oregon? What is their investment and what are they looking at specifically in totality?
Mr. President and members, just let's join in. Now, in terms of the dollars, et cetera, they're looking to use, I believe, some of it. There was a reserve fund in the aggregation coalition. They'll use some things, retain some experts perhaps to say, is this the same way we do now? We retain a way to buy energy for this next 5-year period, this next 3-year period. This looks a little longer. And the question is, can the math work to look a little longer on a project like this? Because you don't want to sink this sort of capital into a project unless it'll work for a longer period of time. And so there's benefit and risk associated with looking long. And the question is on a portion of your market going out, looking out a certain number of years so that, okay, I can, and most large industrials that buy energy now do. They have a portion of their energy they buy in the daily market, maybe a portion they buy on a few months at a time, and a portion they might buy in a strip out several years, depending upon their particular shape of their energy. And for the aggregation coalition, it's the same way of trying to say, can we be a little more sophisticated in the way we buy energy and locking in a fixed price with some capital on a portion of it. And the one good thing about Mark Fry, he's skeptical enough that he asks good questions before he'll jump into things. We have this aggregation coalition has performed very well for our ratepayers over the decades because Mark will ask those tough questions. But it is Mark that brought this in and said, hey, we should look at this in light of what is going on with the rates that are potentially available. He said, might be that it's not sustainable, but that's really what they want to look at. So they're going to look at what are the capital costs, what are the maintenance costs, what's the degradation of the newest technology, to what extent does the opportunity degrade over time, electricity. Sometimes there's folks that went out and bought X percentage of a coal plant. They regretted it, all right? Because that turned out to be the highest price energy in the world, or in the market right now. So that is that balance those things out. So what prices would have to come in to make it a good purchase for a percentage of it? There's also another way they might look at it, is there is a percentage of the market that would choose to buy solar power, and they do now, even if it costs X percentage more per kW than power from other sources. They're looking to buy renewable, same way they buy organic, all right? And so that's among the factors that's being explored as they look through that process. Is it practical to be able to offer something like that for our members, or is it just a good hedge for everybody looking along? So that's hence the process. It's kind of an interesting process. It's been interesting to be engaged in. It's taken a while to look at it, but the technology does get better every year. It's really interesting where it's going.
So, just one last follow-up to that. So, in the letter of intent and the project as we're pursuing or looking at it, this is a look at how we're not necessarily putting a physical entity solar production facility here. It's buying.
That's correct, sir. There is no aspect of this would include us building our own. It would be looking to someone who does this on the cutting edge and
buying off the grid based on rate.
That's right. And then essentially they go out and some of these line up subscribers and a percentage of their load, like anything else, like somebody builds a gas-fired plant here, they might have X percentage of that they'll sell on the grid on a daily basis, the same way that people are buying it, people are selling it the same way.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Monahan. Council, is there any further questions?
Mr. President?
Mr. Seaman?
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is a very good idea. I think that renewable, clean solar energy helps support a clean environment for our citizens here in Oregon. It's also a good idea to have a diversification of energy sources because you never know when one might have some difficulty and we rely on something different. So I think overall it's an excellent endeavor, and I hope that it comes into fruition where the price is competitive, and that'll make it for a cleaner community for the citizens of Oregon. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Council, is there anything further on item number 103? Hearing no questions, I'll sign item 103 with ordinance number 103 of 2020 and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans?
Authorizing the mayor and director of finance to enter into a letter of intent for the potential purchase of solar generated energy and related electric consulting agreement and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council?
Mr. President,
Mr. Monahan.
I move for passage of ordinance 103 of 2020 as an emergency measure.
Thank you, Mr. Monahan. Second by Mr. Davish. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call count on passage of ordinance number 103 of 2020 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Moorhead?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell? Yes. Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Mr. Wolotek?
Yes.
Mr. Dale?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Please note that ordinance number 103 of 2020 did pass by a vote of 7 yeas, 0 nays. Or, excuse me, 6 yeas, 0 nays. We'll move to item number 104 of 2020. Item number 104 is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Superior and Public Service Director Mr. Paul Whitman. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President, and, we're working with the city of Toledo to make a connection from their water treatment plant to our infrastructure for the water, so we can get into our water line with theirs, and to cross this property so we can get there. Mr. Roman probably has a few other details, but there were a couple of these arrangements to get
Section George Street water line, it is to provide water for Second gas-fired power plant, but we'll also be able to use it for emergency backup supplies, which is improving for our city. So that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 104, 2020? Hearing no questions, I'll sign item number 104 with ordinance number 104, 2020. And ask Ms. Evans to read these into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into an agreement with Automobile North America Incorporated for the acquisition of perpetual water line easement and temporary construction easement to the Street Pump Water Line Project in the current emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Hall.
I move for passage of ordinance number 104, 2020 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Second by Mr. Davish. Ms. Evans, would you please take roll call, council, on the passage of item number 104, or ordinance number 104, 2020, as an emergency measure?
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Wallington?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes. Thank you. Please note that ordinance number 104, 2020 did pass by a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays. We move to the final item this evening, item number 105, 2020. This item is being presented by Mayor Michael J. Severino and Finance Director, Mr. Garland Conrad. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, this work that was done by the Finance Department that gives us the opportunity here to take that grant for a little bit of money to help deal with some of the costs we incurred from COVID. And Garland is here to tell us a little more details of what we did. Was $10,000.
Ms. Conrad?
Thank you, Mr. President. The city has the opportunity to apply for federal grants that will reimburse the city for eligible emergency protective measures related to COVID. We would like to submit approximately $11,000 in eligible expenses with this application for reimbursement. And we did have attached a list of the things that we were putting in for. Some is for things that you guys have already approved in on, so the insulation gowns for the fire personnel, the cleaning of those gowns, infrared thermometers, and reimbursement for payroll overtime using COVID protocol.
Thank you, Ms. Conrad. Council, is there any questions for the administration on item number 105 of 2020? Here are no questions. I will sign item number 105 with ordinance number 105 of 2020. And ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record. Ms. Evans.
Authorizing the mayor to submit an application to the Ohio Department of Public Safety Emergency Management Agency for financial assistance from the Public Assistance Grant Program to execute contracts for any resulting service funding for the Ohio Emergency Management Agency and the Department of Homeland Security Federal Emergency Management Agency and declaring emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Seaman.
I'd like to move for passage of item 105 of 2020 as an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Second by Mr. Monahan. Ms. Evans, would you please take a roll call, council, on the passage of ordinance number 105 of 2020 as an emergency measure?
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mrs. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Wallington?
Yes.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes. Thank you, council. Please note that ordinance number 105 of 2020 did pass by a vote of 6 yeas, 0 nays. That ends the items for consideration and passage this evening. We'll move to the mayor's report. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, I do have one personnel issue to disclose here. That would be the retirement letter from Jerry Dickens, employee since 2004 from the fire department. And it says Thursday, October 1st, 2020 was his last day.
forgot the name of it.
No, it's not.
It's a memory care unit.
The memory care unit is called, Good Shepherd, I think it's called the Good Shepherd. It's the Good Shepherd, memory care unit. I thought after Ed was struggling so hard to get it, I might be there for Alzheimer and dementia, place our people. And it's a very pleasant atmosphere. Again, they're very welcoming, very warm, and something that if you did have to take a loved one there, maybe you wouldn't feel as bad as some institutionalized looking unit. And to have that in our community, it's a real plus, I think. And so, the first person was moving in today. Nice little addition that they put into their facility. Yeah, $2.3 million upgrade.
Mr. President, I just want to echo that. It's a really, obviously, Little Sisters was an important part of our community for many decades. I remember when they built the old new place and then the new place over the years. I volunteered there many years ago. And the new St. Francis group, they have, I think, 5 or 6 facilities in the region, Sylvania, Bangor, around the area. And I think they're going to be a good long-term partner for us here in Oregon as well. On top of that, I just want to shout out a thanks. I know Jim Simo mentioned a shout out a thanks to all the folks who did work on the farmers markets for the summer. I mean, at least the last 2, I don't think I've ever seen more people. A lot of people said thank you. We were over there. The last one's another big success. I'm sure Jim will say something about it. Tina worked a lot on it. Keith and Jim and folks from the chamber. So they were nice events. Thanks to the Josephs for letting us use the property there. So they were nice community events.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. Mr. Morrow.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Mr. Rowan. No report. Thank you, Mr. Rowan. Mr. Zale.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Zale. Mr. Seaman.
Yes, as Mr. Beasley said, it wasn't quite successful, but it wouldn't be that way if it wasn't for the support of the city administration and the Chamber of Commerce and Mr. Beasley and Mayor Severian's personal backing of it. And everybody that helped out, the street department and Christina, she did a tremendous job. So I think we all pitched in, and people are really thankful. They said, well, it's about time we have this, and it was very successful. And some people were asking to have it maybe out of maybe 1 or 2 of the months, have it twice in a month, maybe 1 of the months when there's more produce available. So they thought that was a very good thing for the city of Oregon. They're looking forward to it next year. So thanks everybody for helping, especially the city administration. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Mr. Dash.
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Dash. Paul.
Nothing from my personal committee, but I wanted to let you guys know, the Oregon Jerusalem Historical Society, along with the director, are putting on the Haunted Oregon Tour, and we have reached 100 families registered. The last day to register for it is this Wednesday, and it goes, the tour you can do by yourself with your family from now till the end of the month, and it will end with a drive-through Halloween party at the Historical Society in the afternoon. More information on the Rex Facebook page and OJHS's website and Facebook page. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Paul.
Mr. President?
Yes.
And Ken, along with what Ms. Powell said, Michelle Wilder has written up some very interesting vignettes and short stories about different historical parts of the city of Oregon, and they're quite interesting. I learned a lot reading them, and that's published also as part of the program. So that was very interesting. We talked about Romney Town and all the different grocery stores that were like 90 years old and places where they kept horses and everything. It was quite interesting. So if you get a chance, try to read that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. And thank you, Ms. Paul. Mr. Hornberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing from my standard committee, but I do want to just, two quick things out there. One, the press release regarding trick or treating for Halloween was well received. I saw that people are starting to get that information. I think it's excited to be able to also celebrate the partake in the festivities of actual trick or treating for Halloween. The other part, so I guess it's a go rec department kind of meeting. Boy, how fun was it to see so many people and so much activity out here this weekend. Tournament going on, done responsibly, done well. It was just fun to see kids out in October using the ball fields out there, and 70-degree temperatures don't make it too bad here in October, but absolutely right to see that. So kudos to everybody at the city and the rec department for pulling that together and being so responsible. So,
Mr. President? Yes, sir. Just a note that, Council, that was 2 weeks in a row because we had 950 participants the week before in the cross-country events. So we're really, got a lot of praise from people from other communities who really like their facilities.
yeah, and I've heard that from some of the folks over there. It's fun because the hidden gem that has been organized is getting a little less hidden, so it's a lot of fun that we get to see what we have to offer out here as well. So very well done, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Mr. Beasley, in that regard, has anybody reached out to any of our local businesses, hotels, restaurants, to see if they did see an uptick in business because of all the tournaments that were held this year, hotel stays? I'm not sure how we can correlate some activities for our businesses with
Mr. President, that is something we've had conversation about. We concluded it was a hard year to measure because hotels and restaurants were in such an unusual place they didn't know. But anecdotally, we know that people were customers' places. It was a hard year to measure because our people weren't staying in hotels, and so they go, oh yeah, we're up, but they can't say they were up any percentage because they weren't. So, but we're hoping that next year we can get some better measures of that as we have some more conversations about coordinating stays. Because I know that even just in terms of the value, I know that virtually every hotel in the market, including all the Oregon hotels, will be filled for the events like at Pacesetter Park. And so people come and stay. Now this year, with the COVID world we're in, that fewer families were staying in hotels. They're coming and going and driving. But that down the line, we think people come and stay here and enjoy the market, et cetera, as we go. But it was a hard year to measure. We're interested in that conversation, though.
Well, thank you, Mr. Beasley. I know that as we move forward and we look at recreation in kind of an economic development tool, like how do we bring people into our community, and that's data that would be valuable for our thank you. And I have nothing for my standing committee, so at this point, I would seek a motion to adjourn.
Real quick, Mr. Hornia, what's the Oregon Economic Development Foundation? It's coming up. When is that?
My apologies, thank you. Usually I do that reminder. It is this Friday. Typically starts 8 a.m. I can get information back on it. It's typically 8 a.m. It will be in person and via Zoom. I don't know the location of it.
Mommy Day.
Is it Mommy Bay?
Mommy Bay.
Okay, so Mommy Bay upstairs, and they also will be Zooming as well for those that can attend that way. So worthwhile doing, certainly be a part of that. I had some good engagement with members of that board and with that organization over the last couple of weeks, and feel that we're, even in the weird world that we're in this year, I think we're making some good strides to continue to capitalize on what we started here. So thank you, Mr. Seaman, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman. Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Therefore, I'll seek a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Seaman.
Second.
Second by Mr. Horniak. Councilman